Hey guys, just one more minute, then I think we can get started. Hello everyone, hope my screen is visible. Can you just ping in the message if it's visible? And I'm audible as well. Yeah, sure. So let's get started. So first of all, thank you everyone for joining me for this talk, and thank you Danan for inviting me. And today I'm going to give a talk on exploring the Canvas API for Jetpack Compose. And about me, myself Chetan Gupta, I have like 4+ years of Android experience, and I've been currently working at Deshe Telecom as a senior software engineer. And if you want to know more about me, you can check my website and get to know my social handle and the things I'm posting for open source communities. Chalo, without any further ado, let's start. Okay, so by now, I assume all of you guys have been familiar with Jetpack Compose. If you're not, then just know it's a declarative UI toolwork, which is giving us capability to draw our views onto the UI. Okay, so the major reason why it's getting so much attraction is because of this declarative nature, right? So if you just know about any declarative toolkit, UI toolkit, there are two major components that are into play, right? First is a view and second is a state. Everything which is getting composed on your UI is the result of interaction between these two states. So view doesn't have a capability to update itself. It just fires an event, and that event is observed by an state, and that state in response to that event spit out an entire new view that which gets rendered onto the screen. But if you think very closely, if that is happening, then we have learned in Android, right? The rendering of UI is the most expensive thing which can happen. And imagine if every action that you're performing on the UI is re-rendering your entire code base, right? That is not good for performance, right? That's why actually the declarative style of code has been holding back itself. But when you're talking about a declarative UI system toolkit, it is designed in such a way, not the entire hierarchy, just a particular portion of a code base get refreshed on every interaction of this whole scenario, this unidirectional flow, right? So when you talk about Jetpack Compose, it's basically working on the fundamental of this core component, which is called composable, right? So what happens we have you can relate those composable to a widget of your Android UI, right? You can say that it is a view group or it can be a view depending upon the context. But in Jetpack Compose we have core components, right? The core layouting components, which are these three, right? First is a column, right? When you want to position your views vertically, you use a column composable. When you want to position them horizontally, use row. And when you want to stack one over the other, you use a box. And there are also various different layouts supported in the Compose. But for example, this constraint layout, but it is only specific to a specific platform, right? For example, this constant layout is very specific to Android Compose. It is not available in web, CLI, desktop, and other targeted clients. Acha, I forgot to tell you about this. The Compose in itself is just a framework. The underlying platform, it can be targeted to different platforms. For example, right now we are in this talk we are discussing about this Jetpack Compose for the desktop, but it's other variants for web and watch and CLI. It's coming out, right? It's in the process of releasing, right? So those all things were the core component, but in today's talk we are going to focus on this specific part, which is Canvas API, right? So what is the difference between a Canvas composable and a normal composable? So a normal composable can have a composite item itself. So one composable composable column item can have more of its composable item like text and any other component, widget component. But for Compose, when you enter its functional body, it's working with the draw scope, right? So this gives you capability to draw the scope. You can't just add, normal composable into it. For example, if I want to draw a text on the canvas, I can't just include a text composable here because the scope inside this composable canvas is of drawing scope, not of composable scope, right? So that will give you an error, and you have to keep in mind while working with that canvas, right? So this drawing scope has a drawing scope API which gives you function to draw basic shapes, right? So for example, when I'm talking about a circle, you want to draw a circle. There is a simple function which name is this draw circle, right? If you want to draw a rectangle, there is a function called draw rect. And if you want to draw a line, there is a draw line function. Like you can do much more than drawing these three basic shapes. There is path, there is arc, right? So basically, the Canvas API itself has very easy function you can use to work with. Like for this, you can visit the official documentation, and inside the draw scope section, you can see how we can easily draw any kind of line or any canvas item which we want to draw. For example, when we want to draw a line, right? Every line wants a start point and an end point, right? In composable world, we define that points using this offset. So in this offset, you need to just tell your x and y coordinate, and at the end you have to do the same your x and y coordinate, and your line will be drawn automatically when you fire this function, right? Similarly, we have very easy functions to draw our canvas or drawn to our canvas. Like if you want to draw a circle, you just put so what a circle require, basically important thing is the radius, right? So just put a radius and then tell at what position you want to point it to, draw it to, right? We use the offset, and x and y, the value where we want to draw it, we just pass it to it, right? Then coming back to the square, you can see there is a rectangle. So yeah, so just there is a common, I think, knowledge that square is a rectangle with height and width which is equal. So you can use this draw rect to draw that square shape, right? So basically, the Canvas API in itself is really easy to work with. But actually, if you see, then why developer like you and me are afraid of using Canvas to draw your thing is because of the maths. On every other platform, after posting my example, I was getting this specific question: how much effort is there to learn the maths behind it so you can draw beautiful things on the canvas? So for that, the answer just depends. It depends on the use case you are trying to solve. But for getting started, the hurdle of getting that maths down correctly, you need to first overcome that fear that you are not scared of the maths. So even in my journey, I started building with many of the examples, and slowly I worked on with it. So here in today's presentation, I will try to go through the examples I have made and try to simplify that maths behind it. So once you are in grasp of that maths, you can create your own Compose examples, right? So for example, right now, I created the first app which I created using Jetpack Compose was this. So there is a star field and there is a simple logo on it, right? So you can see this is showing this 3D effect that it is zooming to your eye, right? The line is coming towards your eye. right? So if you try to understand what kind of logic if I have put, I just have done these specific points related to that, right? So for that, see, the canvas, what it draws on the screen is static. So once you have done the drawing part, it won't update itself. So you need to make a specific loop which re-renders the item. It is again, this philosophy again goes back to the intelligent recomposition that Compose do for you. So you just create a state, right? That state, if you observe again and again, will trigger a recomposition onto your canvas, and you can experience a similar behavior like a game loop, right? Just in some moment I will show you the code behind this, but let's break down all the maths that I used, to create this kind of a screen, right? So for this you need to also know your coordinate geometry, very basic coordinate geometry. You don't have to create know a complex stuff like planes and all that, just a basic geometry. Or if you are very familiar with the concept of vector, that will also work. So yeah, and heads up, the Kotlin language, it doesn't have vector data structure by itself. So there are specific libraries which can include like Kotlin Max, which gives you a vector out of the box, but I will suggest not to do that, because vectors can be of different dimensions, 2 dimension, 3 dimension, and the vector, this is called vector component as well if you look at XYZ axis. So that complexity can keep on going increases. Just start small and get the concept of coordinates first, then go along with it. So I will say use a data structure like you can create your own class called vector, or you can use a data structures like triple or a pair to bundle your XYZ axis together to give you that sense of coordinate and perform some mathematics on it, right? I will be covering this as well and showing you an example how I did that. The second thing is that you just need to know how to find the center of the canvas. If you can see, everything is coming out from the center, this section, right? So it is pretty easy. You just take the length and divide it by 2. You will if I say ki this canvas is of, this is the size of the canvas, this area, then if you divide it by 2, you will end up at this center point. And if this is the y coordinate of the height of the canvas, then divide it by 2, you will end up at the center, right? So you just need to know how to find the center. And so this function is really important function if you want to draw something in 3D, right? So how you can understand this function is like mapping a certain value to a given range. For example, if I say there is a value from I have given you a value 0.5, and I ask you to map how much it will be in the range of 0 to 1, it will be 50%, right? And if I say again map that value to a different scale, like say 1 to 100, right? So again the value to be 50%, it need to be 50, right? That kind of mapping you need to know, otherwise you won't be able to get that 3D effect. These things are coming at your eyesight if you don't use this map ranging. I will show how I have created this function just in a while. And very simple, 2 more random functions, which is present in our standard library to randomize the position of these lines. And the last thing, how to draw a line, right? So this is a line. So let's go through the example now. Okay, so I will go through the how I draw the stuff, and then how I have updated the stuff. I will tell how I have refreshed the frame later, right? The game loop I will tell you later how I have created it. So if you just focus, this is the only code which I use to draw that so many lines onto the screen, right? So if you see, this is the only thing which which is given by Compose API to enable me to draw a line, right? But there are so many lines on the screen, right? You can see that. So how I'm achieving that? I am using a custom class. You can say I'm using a list of stars, right? What I do is set up my scenario, set up my scene. Into that I add 800 to 5 times the stars, right? So this star is the data model, how the star system will behave inside the environment, inside my setup, right? And this update function is getting triggered on every recomposition, and that is how I'm updating my screen on every second. So this whole is the logic which is controlling the movement of that line which is going towards your eyesight, right? So before I tell that, let's also see this first, the drawing logic. So see what I've did. I have taken out the canvas width and canvas height. Okay, got its center point by dividing it by half, right? For I need to draw a line, right? So what a line needs, a start point and an end point, right? So for that, what I did, I need to position those lines from the center, right? So what I did, I did center minus tail length, x center minus tail length, x center minus this. On the y coordinate, I did the same to position it from the center. And similarly with my x-axis, I've done the same. So you might be thinking from where this coordinates are coming of head and tail. I am getting it destructured from my star values. Okay, I will be coming that in a second. So this is the only region I needed to create my star, this space line thing. Okay, this was the rendering part. Let's see how I'm updating those values. Okay, so what I've did, these three are my coordinate system, x, y, and z. What I'm doing, I'm updating their value every second. So imagine this chunk of code will be updated every second. This part is in the game loop, right? So what I'm doing, I am taking previous coordinates and updating it with the new coordinates that are in the system. See, I am create this copy. This is a triplet, right? Triplet is a collection of three values, and this is representing my x, y, and z axis. Okay, so if you see x, my here x is representing the star x position. This is representing star y position, but this z is not representing star's z position. It is representing the depth at which this 3D plane is residing. So what I'm doing, I'm just storing this xyz position to the previous one. Okay, this will be my tail. Okay, then what I'm doing, I'm updating my coordinates. So if it's a 0, then I'm resetting that z item, okay, to the windows width. Otherwise, I'm decreasing it by 1. So that's how it will give me that effect of this going to the edge effect. Okay, this z-axis. Then what I'm doing, I'm with the same. So you can imagine this as a reset scenario. This z is smaller than 1 is the reset scenario. If I'm resetting this size, okay, it has minus so much that it has reduced down to 1. Then I'm taking a random xy, okay, to reposition my item. Otherwise, if it's not the reset scenario, what I'm doing, I will get a random position, a very fractional position, which is giving a slightly that if every value would have been same, the line wouldn't be going this directionally. See, every line is slightly tilted, right? This circular thing wouldn't have come out if I haven't done that. Oh, sorry, just let me go back. Yeah. So what I'm doing, I'm just creating a fraction, and then I'm mapping this fraction from 0 to 1 with respect to 0 to the window of the screen. So if you see how I'm using this capability, so this is a percentage formula, right? So it is obtained upon max into 100. This is the percentage formula. So what I'm doing, I'm finding what is the percentage in this range. Okay, then I'm again putting the percentage formula for this range. Okay, so whatever range I get, okay, I convert it back to the value using this total. So this is value upon total into 100. So if you send it this side, it will become range into 100 or divide by 100 whole. This was in division form, right? It will come into multiplication form with the new mapped values. Okay, and this will give you the mapped value according to this range. Okay, so this is deciding how my x and y will be rotated significantly, and this 3D effect is coming because due to that. The depth effect is coming because of that. So you can go through this code from my repository, and you will able to when you run it line by line, you will be able to understand how x and y coordinates are running. But if you can see, it's a really simple maths. So this is a percentage formula. This is a So this is a percentage formula, like value and convert it to a percentage, and now this is, you are given a percentage, now you have to convert it to a value. Okay, so there is not a big data science maths into it. Okay, and other than else, you can see everything has been taken care of by my random functions. Okay, and there is nothing special inside this code base that is, that can give you some kind of a nightmare key you will be scared of creating your own composable functions, Canvas API is some star-like pattern or a particle system, right? Which I made was this Batman poster with raining particle system. So if you can relate this example, and this example is completely same, but what I've done, I've just removed the 3D part and I've converted into 2D, right? So if you can see, the maths is actually the same that I require, but a new thing has come up, which is acceleration, right? To if see, this rain is falling vertically down, right? If to make if I wouldn't have added some kind of acceleration, right? I'm using a fake gravity here. If I haven't used the gravity here, then this wouldn't look like a real, what we say, rain particle system. Why? Because you can see, as the rain is going down, the acceleration acting on the rain is increasing. This is giving it's a rain effect. Otherwise it would have looked like a static, static raindrop, static, not even a raindrop, just a line just coming from top to bottom. It wouldn't have looking that realistic, right? So if you see, there is nothing changed into that. So see, I again have my XYZ axis, okay, but now my Z is not pointing to that depth, my Z axis. Now it is a factor which is telling my fall speed. Okay, this, see, I'm using this factor to generate a random gravity acceleration, and I am adding that acceleration on every pass of the update function. Okay, so just let me again go through and tell you how I have drawn that UI. Just give me a second for that. My system is hanging. Okay, see, yeah, it's functional again. So again, I have created a drop. I have added 8 into 5 drops. Okay, then for drop, what I'm doing, this is the Batman image. So this entire thing is just a background image. The rain particle system is being drawn by this compose, right? So one thing which, okay, this is a wrong example, which I've done wrong, is that I have put in my bitmap inside this canvas. So my canvas is getting re-rendered. So again and again, my Batman image is also getting re-rendered. So you have to be mindful of that. I could have easily created an image view and have created that entire full screen kind of thing with that image view, and I could have just let the draw bitmap inside of it, and I would have gained much more performance compared to again and again redrawing this bitmap. So this is a wrong way of doing things. Okay, don't do that. You have to be mindful what you are recomposing again and again, right? Because this is a bitmap, and you every time drawing a bitmap will take a lot of memory from your system. So chalo, let's drop this one. Just this is the only code which I use to draw this raindrop. Now if you go and see what I'm doing, it's just again a line. Okay, line with x and y. Okay, I just need to have a length, right? So raindrop need to have a length, so I'm adding that length into the y-axis instead of doing that earlier. Like earlier example, I was doing a deduction of previous and new pointer. I knew my raindrop length will be some specific value, so I just plus summed it with here. Okay, and this is for thickness of the raindrop. So this is the only code for drawing the raindrop. Then let's come back to the this updation, how the canvas is updating and the motion is happening of raindrop. So my y-axis is the thing which is dropping this rains, right? This rain, I'm increasing the y-axis, that's why it is going down. So in that, what I'm doing, I'm adding a specific fall speed, and that fall speed is getting randomly generated. Okay, So again, you can see I've used a Z to map to create that. So what now Z is doing? So Z, like what I've told you, ki Z is responsible for creating that acceleration, but it is also responsible for another thing. If you can see the particle, which this particle are also partially 3D. So when the Z axis is bigger, then the particle is system, this raindrop is bigger, and the size of this raindrop will be much, the length of this raindrop will be bigger. Okay, and the length, the particle which is at backside, the Z axis is low, then the raindrop length will be at backside and its length will be small. So that how it also gives a 3D look, that the water is dropping with different velocity. This also gives that effect, that rain layering, the distance, the field of view effect. So where I was, yeah. So that how the rain thing is working. So where is the acceleration, you might ask? So here is the acceleration. Okay, what I do, I add something to the fall speed, then I update fall speed with the gravity value. Okay, and once my y-axis crosses my canvas height, this means that my raindrop has crossed this line. So what I do, I reset my position of y with a random value. So it drops again, then reset, drops again, reset, drops again. Okay, so I'm reusing my this object instead of wasting memory. Okay, so you can see this reset item, what is doing, it's randomly generating a x with respect to the width, it's random generating a y, it's randomly generating a z, and then it's updating all that with respect to z. So length is getting updated, the fall speed is getting updated, thickness and the gravity effect, everything is getting resetted. Okay, so this is a basic simple example how I created this raindrop system. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So okay, so next thing which I built was this fake clone of this Fruit Ninja game, which is very popular game in Android. So you can see the core concepts which has been carried forward. So what I'm doing, I have created a circle. Okay, I am throwing that circle with a y velocity. Okay, if I see, so this, if I say this part is positive y, this part is positive x, right? If I want to throw something from bottom to the top, I need to throw it with a negative velocity, right? But if I give, for example, if I say I have thrown a item, I've given a item a velocity of -4. What it will do, it will keep on going up, 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 and it will cross the screen. I want it to fall back down, right? So I want to add a force against it, right? This force is equal to mass into acceleration. So in this system, I haven't created a accurate, physics engine. Otherwise, mass would have also affected the acceleration. But for now, just assume the force is equal to acceleration, which is working on the item. Okay. So whenever I'm throwing an item, I'm throwing it with the -4 velocity, and in oppose of that, I'm again giving it an acceleration of positive direction. Okay, so it starts with -4 and I give it as an acceleration of 0.2. So -4 plus 0.2, -4 plus 0.2, -4. Okay, matlab in every frame, it's adding plus 0.2 in every frame. So there will come a point when the velocity, the minus velocity will become 0 and the item will fall down. Okay, that's how the items are coming up and going down, coming up and falling down. And what I do, whenever they drop down below this y-axis, I reset their position to a random y with again negative velocity. It will go up, fall down, go up, fall down. Okay, now see, now I have to create second complex thing, this interaction, right? This, when I go close to this, any of the balls, it explodes, right? How I'm doing that, I have created a small white dot. I don't know if that is visible. I have created a small player circle. Okay, what I'm doing, I'm using the distance formula. So to detect this overlapping or touching behavior, if two objects have zero distance between them, this means they are overlapping on each other, right? So I've used the same philosophy in here. So whenever this white ball has zero distance with any of the item, I just reset that item position from its that point to this y-axis with the random position. So imagine the item just gets invisible and reset to different position. So when I touch an item, the bigger circle just get resetted to a new y coordinate. And so this is the first thing I did. The second thing, you can see there is an explosion, right? Whenever I click, whenever I reach to the position of any ball, there is a sudden explosion. When that explosion is happening, what I'm doing, whenever I'm reaching that distance 0, I reset the item, and on that exact coordinate, what I do, I randomly generate small circle in the range between 100 to 255 and give them a random velocity, a random acceleration of x and y. So what happens, the moment I collide with them, the bigger ball get resetted. In the place of that bigger ball, small mini balls spawns out, okay, becomes visible. I draw again those balls, and they get they give the scattering behavior because they have random xy acceleration associated with them, okay. And to save the memory, what I do, when if I blow another ball, those same particle are reused at different position, okay. So that was entirely for memory optimization thing, okay. So let me show you the code how I achieved that. Okay, Rain, this is Fruit Ninja. Okay, so let's see how I've done that main thing. So again, you can see what components I've added to the system. I took a fruit. Okay, so you can see this mapping is quite complex because I've added many fruits. So every fruit has its own particles. First, I think it will be better for this example, I explain what is the domain, how I've created this fruit item. So this fruit item has a ID. This ID is, I use this ID to specifically figure out which item has exploded, okay. And this is the coordinate system. So for that XYZ axis, this is the velocity, okay. So you can see I have created a velocity into a it is also a vector. You can imagine this, whenever I'm writing a triple, it's a vector. So instead of giving a speed of x and x, I'm just giving a y velocity, okay, at random y velocity. Okay, for that fruit, this has a acceleration in the beginning. It's this acceleration vector and the velocity vector y coordinate, y's magnitude is different, but acceleration itself is starting off with a 0, okay. And there is a color of that ball, which is a random color. You can just see I have created a random color template and randomly choosing that, okay. So in the update, you can see what I'm doing. I'm just on to the velocity, I'm adding a specific acceleration, and that acceleration is coming out from my canvas, okay. So it's a global entity. I'm just adding that the same concept. I'm adding some value to the velocity, because acceleration is change of speed of an object with respect to time. So with every passing frame, I need to add a value to the velocity so that its acceleration increases with every passing frame, which gives the same simulation as accelerating object. Then update those coordinate according to the velocity, and I reset the acceleration, okay. Since I have updated this velocity, it doesn't matter to do this acceleration, but I have done that because I don't want it to over accelerate, okay. Because I'm giving a force externally. I don't want that force. I want that force to be continuously adding at every frame. I don't want it to accumulate at I don't want it to be accumulated force. I want it to be slightly increasing at every frame, not an accumulated one. So this second is y-axis. So if you know the triplets first, and we can access triplets item by first, second, and third. So this is x, this is y, this is z. So this is y coordinate I'm talking about. If y coordinate, reset the screen. I've told you, right, ki if I drop down to this frame, I reset my fruit ball, okay. So what I'm doing, ki whenever I'm falling down to the y, I reset my ball. In that reset, what I do, I just reset coordinate, velocity, acceleration, and the color, okay. Now the other thing is the explosion, okay. So you see this item get exploded on touch, on when distance is 0, okay. I explode that item. So let me show you what I'm doing on the exploding. On exploding, I have added a specific particles. I have a list of particles on my scene. You can see that I have a list of particles and list of fruit. Okay, so every fruit is related to the particles with this ID. So this int is an ID. Okay, so you can see I'm adding a fruit. I'm adding a fruit. Okay, I have said ki add 5 fruits, and these 5 fruits create random 25 to 100 particles and add those particles to the fruit. Okay, so I'm maintaining this hash map, which is telling me against which fruit ID I have how many explosion particles. Okay, where is that? Let's go back. What I'm doing on every explosion, I'm checking that if my fruit ID, this is fruit ID is equal to the item's ID, then on every fruit particle, what you do, set the explosion to true. Matlab, this is where I will reset it's a flag to reset the particle system to a new coordinate system. Okay, it won't be true immediately, because even if it's immediately done true, the second frame will take a second delay to reset the position and show the explosion particle to a different position. This imagine this is a reset operation of a fruit particle. I have created a fruit particle in the setup function, but I am giving it a new you can say color and coordinate system to to reuse those old previous particles which I was using for explosion. So here I apply the color as the same as the fruit color. Okay, otherwise the explosion might be having the fruit color of previous fruit. I want those colors to be related to the current fruit. So I reset its color. I reset its coordinate. Its coordinate will be the coordinate of the fruit at exact that time the explosion has happened. This explosion happened when the distance is 0. So that exact time I copy the coordinate, and what I do, I just update the coordinate with some minus. I want to send those particle left and right, up and down. Okay, so for that I take some random values from negative to positive, from negative side of x to positive side of x, and negative side of y to positive side of y, get a random value and add it to their coordinate, so the explosion can start off with some random x and y coordinate. Then I reset that fruit. Okay, the fruit is getting reset in here. So if you can see, the fruit is just a circle. Okay, so you can see how I've drawn the circle. So it's basically, so you can see there is a blinking, right? These fruit are blinking from small to big, small to big. What I'm doing, I am using this in the place of composition. In the part of composition of the canvas, I am getting out a random radius, which is giving it a small blinking effect, a pulsing effect. Okay, then I'm positioning to the center, which I got from the coordinate. So this will give the motion of going upward, and when acceleration change the xy coordinate, it will give the motion of free fall, the downfall. Okay, and now here is this particle class. Okay, so particle has coordinates, particle has velocity, particle has acceleration, but it doesn't have any complex mathematics related to its acceleration. I just add random acceleration just to throw it out of some x or y coordinate. Okay, then the color, the first particle I create will be having the random color, but whenever the explosion is happening, the particle color is getting resetted. This is the area where I reset the particle color to the exploding fruits color. Okay, so from here you can easily see that one more thing, these particles don't just use alpha to slowly get dissolved into the canvas, into the background. I don't want them to abruptly be getting teleported from one place to other. That's why I have a alpha thing. Okay, okay, let's focus on this part. This is the updating part. So what I do, I add random acceleration to every the exploding particle. Okay, then I check for alpha. Then what I do, I add this increased velocity to my coordinates, reset my acceleration again, and if my explosion has been true, right? For example, I have exploded the item for the second item. First item was in process of exploding, then I swiftly went back to the second item. Then those particles need to reset to the new position, so this flag is governing that. mind you, this is not instantaneous, so you will see a proper animation. You won't see abrupt, matlab you won't see that fading away immediately, but you will see that particles are shifting from one place to other. Okay, this is entirely for optimization purpose, nothing else. So while resetting, I just put their acceleration velocity to 0, reset their alpha, and said that explosion has been resetted, and set it to false. Okay, and you can see the particle is exactly a circle with a smaller radius compared to that, uh, the fruit. Okay, and now this is the player, this is the white dot which I'm drawing. Okay, so this white dot is responsible for calculating the distance between the fruit ball. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing. I'm getting the fruits outside. I'm getting entire list from the parameter. Okay, I take that fruit list. Okay, I find any of the item. I say give me first or null. Give me any fruit which is whose distance is less than a specific threshold. Okay, so this is a distance formula. If you don't know, what you do, you subtract their x and y coordinates, power it by 2, and do a square root. It will give you a distance. This is a distance formula, right? Underscore of x square, x2 minus y1 ka whole square plus y2 minus y1 ka whole square. That formula, I'm using it to figure out the distance, and I'm using it to figure out a specific distance. That it is less than 15, then do your magic, do a hit. If I found any fruit which is on the hit, I perform this on hit action. Okay, so you can see this is a lambda which I'm giving back to the canvas. Okay, if you go and see what I say it dot explode. The fruit, I say fruit explode. Okay, when this fruit explode, it will follow the algorithm of scattering those particles. Let's then go back, and this is the simple function you to draw your player dot. So yeah, and I think I've shown you, but I will show it again, how I have rendered that part of the frame. I okay, just don't, so it won't be rocket, it will be fruit. I've misnamed the variable in here. Okay, so yeah, here is my canvas. Okay, here is my canvas. Also see, I have to take the mouse x and y, right? Because you can see my player is moving. My white dot, this white circle is moving where my mouse position is, right? I'm doing that thing using this. Okay, this a mouse pointer filter. It is giving me offset. I've told you, right? Offset give me the coordinate position of x and y. I take out that x and y, and I take a state, and I put that xy coordinate into that state. Okay, so where is that? So this is the region which is responsible for drawing my fruits. What I do, I take all the fruits. Let me just quickly rename it to fruit, so you guys are able to understand it. So what I do, I give it a acceleration. This acceleration is the value of gravity, not the exact value. It's just a random value vector which I have created. I've set it to 0.2. Okay, it's a random value which I decided will look good in my animation. That's why I have put it. Then I draw the fruit. Okay, draw fruit I have already shown you. It's just a simple circle drawing. Okay, then what I do, I have particles. Okay, this not the rocket particle, it's a fruit particle. I'll just call it particle. I take that particle, and on each particle I apply that force and draw that particle. Okay, when it's starting off there, and any particle, none of the particle will be drawn, because there is no place which is getting exploded. So the initially this particle system will be 0. So no, you won't see any particle drawn onto the surface. Okay, and then you just draw this, draw your player, and when this lambda is the hit function which I've just explained to you. You just draw your player using that draw circle, and the distance between any of the fruit is less than this threshold value 50. It will trigger on hit, and when on hit happen, I just explode the particle. So that's how entire fruit ninja concept I've created this. Okay, so you can see all the examples are like incremental on it themselves. So the star field was using all these maths, then the rainwater system was using entirely exactly the same, just the concept of acceleration in the 2D plane, right? Then I used that acceleration formula and learned a new formula which was distance formula, and I created the Fruit Ninja. So you can see, you don't have to be scared of all those maths. You can, pick specific point of maths. You can revise small concept of maths and create a small example, canvas example, and extend your example in a such a way that you are using the previous knowledge as well, and you are expanding it too. That's how you will be able to get a lot of hold on the maths you are doing, and the new things that are you are introducing to your system. Okay. Then the fourth thing, which use everything which I have created up till now, is this space shooter game. Okay. So there is a coordinate system, there is a collision, there is edge detection, there is horizontal motion, there is not vertical motion of this particle. Okay. And the logic carry on same from the other example. The star falling system is exactly the same as this rain falling system, right? So, and you these jetpack spaceship is going upward with that velocity which I have told you, right? The velocity, if I put a negative velocity, it will definitely go up. Since there is no acceleration, it is not coming back down. And for horizontal motion of these aliens, there is an array of alien. What I'm doing, I it doesn't matter. Matlab, you can see. So let me tell that again. If you want to go onto the x-axis, right? The motion is in x-axis. Then your speed need to be positive. That's the only thing that matters. You give it a speed of 5 or 10, it will just decide how fast it is going. But this value being positive decides it to go into horizontal, this positive x direction. When I say this value is negative, then it will go to opposite direction. It will go to negative x direction, right? Like I've told you, this positive negative y will go upward because this x downward is positive. The origin starts from here, right? So this x, this side is positive y, and this side is positive x. So when your velocity is in positive direction, the variable will go this side, and when it is in negative direction, it will go this side. So what I'm doing, when the alien's x is the width of the canvas, I multiply its velocity with -1. Okay. And when the velocity, when the position of alien x is 0, because this place you will see x is 0, and this place x will be the size of the canvas, width of the canvas. Okay. At this place I again multiply it with -1. When it's positive, when I multiply any positive value with -1, it becomes a negative value, right? So for negative direction it will go this side, and if there is a negative value and I multiply it again with -1, it will become a positive value. Then it will go into this direction. So that's how you can see I'm going like this horizontal motion. Aliens are going at left side, then it going at right side, right? And you can also imagine that key how I'm detecting the collision. I am checking the distance formula of this spaceship and the alien. If the distance between the alien and the ship is 0, that means a collision has happened, and I need to remove one alien that has collided from the array of aliens. Okay, so this is the maths behind it. I will quickly go through this example as well. So Fruit Ninja, and this is Space Wars. So let's come again and see what are the components that I have. Okay. One more thing, I'm just using a bitmap to draw my components. Okay, you can also use your circles and all that and apply texture onto it. What I'm doing, this is a bad practice which I'm doing. uh, I'm taking out a bitmap resource, then apply re-rendering that bitmap again and again. Okay, you should avoid that. Instead, use a texture. So once a texture is applied, using a paint object on the canvas, and paint object isn't re-render again and again. So if you apply a texture using that, what we say paint object, it won't be it won't be initialized. You will save a lot of memory by doing this. Okay, so use that. So in my setup scene, you can see what all elements I have. So I have aliens, I have star particle system, okay, I have a spaceship, I have a bullet, okay, and this is the alien count, okay. So I am spawning 8 aliens, and whenever you kill all the aliens, this counter just goes up by 2 aliens. So every time you clean out all the aliens, 2 more alien array with 2 more aliens from the previous one get spawned into the system, okay. So you can see I'm adding aliens to my alien array, and I have decided to put 1600 star particle system, which is quite less, to be honest. If you can see properly, if you focus properly, you will always sometimes you will see those are random values for that. It has nothing to do with the performance, but you can spawn much more, okay. So I just add all those spaceship, star particle system and everything into my entity list, okay. I will explain when I explain you the how I'm creating a game loop, then I will explain how I'm creating this updating system, okay. Basically this list, every item in in this list gets their updater function triggered, and these updater function delegate to every object's update, okay. I will come back to that, but let's just see how I'm drawing. First I'm drawing the items. So this area, this whole code draws my particle system. You have seen that from the rain example. These are just lines, okay. So there is nothing new to it. So now coming back to the alien, what I'm saying, so I just take alien. So I'm changing my alien bitmap with my name as well. You can see. Uh, so there is alien coming, then my name, my community name CH8 initials are coming up. So this is the logic which I'm using it to toggle. Where is that? Toggle my name with the alien bitmap. Okay. So this function is used to draw an alien. So alien is basically a draw image. Okay. So that's what I was telling you about. Don't draw image. Use any shape, circle. It could be a circle. It could be a line. With the painter object, assign a texture to it. Okay, that will be much more performing. Then I'm just taking those offset, and I'm drawing this alien onto the screen. There is nothing new into that. Now coming back to the canvas again. So I'm just taking this boolean to see if alien is dead or not. If any of the bullet which I fire, the spaceship I'm firing, I'm naming it as a bullet. Okay. So any bullet, if touch hits, by hit I mean distance formula. Okay. Is the exact same distance formula. Okay. If that distance formula gives returns are true, that means any of the bullet is true, then the alien is dead. Okay. And when the alien is dead, I don't spawn that. I will just show you the domain class, the updating feature just in a moment. Just let's see how I'm drawing things first. So this is now, and this is how I'm drawing a ship. Ship is again a draw image, and this is the bitmap x and y, just normal coordinate system. Okay. So bitmap has it itself has some height and width. I to keep that into the center, I have specifically taken the bitmap image height and width and divide it by 2 so that it aligns to the center of the value. Okay. Also, I'm using that mouse to control. Mouse X is the X of this uh, spaceship. That's how it is getting managed, the motion of the spaceship. Okay. And the bullet is exactly the same. So just where is that draw bullet? Yeah, in bullet it's just a draw image, and again I'm using the bitmap, so I just minus specific bullet XY, so it aligned perfectly to the center. Okay. Now let's understand what's the logic, how they are getting updated. So yeah, so for the alien, okay, this is the logic which I'm using to render alien on the screen. So like I told you, I have an alien array. Okay. Whenever alien is dead, the hit is true. The hit value is returning me a true. I remove this alien item from my array. Okay. Otherwise, if x coordinate is at the edge is the width of the canvas, right? If it touches the edge or it's touching to 0, I multiply its horizontal direction, the horizontal velocity, with -1. Okay, and I want to bring this alien down, right, a bit of down every passing. I also, add value to its y coordinate, and I'm specifically taking the size and adding 2 to it. Okay, so it's moved a bit out according to the size, and this is matlab, since I want to update my x and y coordinates, I'm doing this. Okay, there is no reset into the alien, because I'm just removing the alien when it dies. There is no reset for the alien. Okay, so chalo, and then what we see, okay, this is the logic to draw ship. So if you can see, there is no logic to update ship. Then you might be thinking how the ship is getting updated. So the basically what is happening, I'm just changing the position of the list from here, like I've told you, right? From the pointer, sorry, wrong example. Okay, where is that me? What I'm doing, I'm just taking the filter point, I'm getting my x value of the mouse and assigning it to the x of the ship. This is the only update function I will be requiring to do. Okay, so instead of doing that into the update, I have done it here. Otherwise, I would have to pass it from the parameter, then set it into the data, then I've updated it. It would have been equal. Just for convenience, I did it here. So if you want to keep consistency in your code base, you can definitely go and do that into the update. Okay, so that's how the spaceship is getting updated. And for the bullet, so bullet just need to do one thing. Whenever bullet crosses my Y region, I just need to remove that bullet from my screen. I just don't want to create unnecessary bitmap objects which have bitmap. I just remove that from my bullet array. Okay, hope it makes sense. And yeah, so like I told you, if the velocity is negative, then only it will go upward direction, because we are in the positive region of Y, right? So that upward motion is coming from this minus, every time minusing a 10 from the Y coordinate of the bullet. Okay, so I think that is it for the mathematical part, right? I have explained you how you can create the same games, like you can detect collision using distance. You can give x and y value to the coordinates. You can just randomly add some value and the motion will happening. So you now I haven't explained you one thing which is very important, which is game loop. This game loop is enabling me to render these motions into the canvas. Okay, and that is really quite simple. Okay, I can go to any example. I think let's go into this frame. So I have created a composable which is called step frame. So its name is step frame, so you can make out it is stepping the frame one step ahead. This is a composable, right? What I'm doing, I am creating a state here. Okay, this is state in millis. Okay, I'm doing a launch effect here. So if you when you are somewhat proficient with compose, just go and learn about side effects, how side effect is catered into the compose environment. So launch effect and produce effect are the two side effects, right, which gives you capability to spawn coroutines. Okay, so my favorite one is produce effect, obviously, but launch effect is the thing which is required into the case. You have to pass a key into it. Like you have to pass a key, and whenever the key changes, this whole coroutine get cancelled and new thing is spawned again when the recomposition has been done. Okay, so I have done this. What I have done, key I have catered out. So this with millisecond is a coroutine function. Okay, so it's a suspended function. You can see the arrow here as well. So with this, I get the frame time, how much time a frame taken to render this at first time. Then I take this loop. This loop is responsible for this is a state, right? I told you how a declarative UI framework works. There is a value, so there is a UI and there is a state. Every time the state update, a unidirection event happens and the UI get re-renders. Okay, a new, you spit out, you get a new view, right? So with every step, with every frame, what I'm doing, I am getting a frame change value, okay, the time it has taken to change a frame, and I am updating it into my state. Okay, now whoever observe this state will face a recomposition. Okay, so how I'm doing that, you just come to the main function, main class, you will see that I've created a skeleton. Okay, this skeleton is a scene class. Okay, scene class has three things. First is the initial setup of the scene. Okay, then there is an update of the scene, and there is a render class. Okay, this render class take a state. This state is exactly the same state that I've shown you into the step. So you might be thinking now how this render state is getting this access to the state. For that, you can come to this main function. Okay, so acha, one more thing, this compose preview thing is not there into the system. I have gone through the example of Statsy, one of the developer, one of my fellow developer, the Apache, the real name is Shifa, has created this composable, which is a really good example if you want to create a preview, right? So what I did, I shamelessly copy pasted his example in here, and I use this preview composable to quickly spawn my window to spawn this scenario. So what I did, I don't want this entire thing to be recomposed accidentally. I want my scenario, because scenario is holding everything. My entire UI is being holded by this scenario object, scene object, right? So I want it to get remembered. Okay, so I'm taking that scene first, calling the setup, so that everything, every actor of my game is, you know, initialized. Then I take that lambda. This lambda is the same composable, this stepping composable. Okay, this stepping composable returns a state. You can see the signature, it is returning a state. This state is exactly the same state, this milli state, the frame time that has passed. Okay, and then I'm calling the scenario.render and passing that state. Okay, so what is happening, any component, okay, which is, you know, observing this state. So you can see I am observing this state here, right? Frame.value, I've observed it. Okay, if I observe this entire, only this, not this box. Okay, composition happened to the part which is getting re-rendered. So only the canvas, since canvas is, you know, observing this event, only the canvas get re-rendered, not the box. Okay, so this canvas get re-rendered, and it is in, while re-rendering, what is happening, this lambda is getting triggered. Okay, so you can see in here what happens, with every updation of the value, this callback is invoked. Okay, whenever this callback is invoked, my scenario.update is invoked. And where is this scenario.update? It is this. You can see I have created a screen entity. These are the players. These are the player on my screen. They are the entities on my screen. Every item which I create, you say it, and then again I'm taking all that drop items and then adding it to my screen entity. And then what I'm doing, for every screen entity item, I'm calling this update. Now you might be thinking how this thing is getting, you know, related, where this entity update is getting created. So I've created a sealed class contract. I'm using sealed class as an contract. Okay, which has this update function. Okay, so every entity which I create, drop, aliens, anything which I'm planning to, you know, render with the data behind it, data class behind it, need to extend this screen entity if they want to face this updation in their value. This update function, if they want it to be triggered, they need to, you know, extend it by screen entity. So what is happening, every time when the screen is getting re-rendered, the entity.update is getting triggered, and this read trigger updates the update function, and these update function will update XYZ coordinates. And when the recomposition of the canvas, right, will be happening, this recomposition will be happening, it will again draw a drop with updated value of the coordinates, right? That's how this entire thing is getting, you know, wired into the system. And you see this compose motion. these kind of beautiful motions you can create by yourself. I hope that this has not been so scary for you right now. The way I've explained it, I think I have built up with a very easy thing, explaining coordinates, vectors, and how to map ranges, create 3D values, and go one by one, extending on the examples. And I will suggest you create examples like this. Okay. So in the end, don't be scared of the maths. Don't be scared of the code. If you are stuck somewhere, I will say, go and learn about that mathematical concept itself. Okay. Just grasp the fundamental key. If I'm saying a vector, what is a vector, right? Vector is a coordinate system which has two things, the magnitude and the direction, right? So use this information and create your own class, create your own implementation, and do that. That will increase your confidence in the language as well. Okay, so the pro tip is this only: just go out, read more examples, and get to know the maths behind that. Okay, once you don't know the maths, which is really easy to grasp, nothing has stepped outside the boundary of coordinate geometry. If you can see, every formula, distance formula, this formula, that formula, everything goes from the bounds of coordinate geometry, specifically for rendering. The physics part also had something, but instead of creating accurate physics model, you can get away with comparable behavior. Instead of creating a true mass into acceleration, I can get away with just a fake acceleration, which is not even the value of gravity. Gravity value is 9.8 into something, right? 9.8 mg something, to show this acceleration, this force, right? So you don't have to do things exactly how physics tell you. Just do what suits your code, your local virtual environment which you want to create. So thank you. This is all, and go ahead, create your own canvas example, and share it with the community, share it with me. I'm on Twitter with this tag Chetan2. Chetan1 was my old profile, so I'm at Chetan2 now, and I do Kotlin and Android blogging. So go out, check my blogs, share them, my blogs, and share my example if you like them. So thank you so much. And yeah. So any,
I have a question not directly related to talk, but have you found a way?
sorry, you're not audible. Can you? There is a lot of buzzing air noise from your end.
Just a second. Is it better now?
Yeah,
Is it better now?
yeah,
Okay.
somewhat better.
So, yeah, so I have a question, not directly related to this talk per se, but Compose Desktop in general. So, have you found a way to embed an OpenGL window directly into Compose Desktop?
Okay.
Is there a way?
So there is an OpenGL extension specifically created for Kotlin. So there is no as such way to draw that onto your screen, right? Because the canvas which we are getting, the Compose items which are getting is very different from the OpenGL things which we are getting. So you need to, I don't exactly need know how that will be wiring up, but we need to have some adapter class which will be converting that OpenGL thing into the canvas thing, right? Canvas or like composable thing which you are going to use, right?
So actually, yeah. So we will not be actually using Canvas in that case.
Yes.
I will just be using Compose window as a host.
Yes. But that host need to support that specific view type which you want to render, right? So if there is an adapter, then it is possible. If there is not an adapter, I think that will be pretty hard to do it, because it is not like the the Android system, right? Because OpenGL was one of the standard, right? Supported there earlier, but here it is working on the engine of Skia. So I exactly don't know will the Skia engine will be supporting this OpenGL or not. if there is that support, then matlab it will be possible to do what you're
Okay.
expecting.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so my profile, you can visit my GitHub profile. I will share the link as well. So every example which I have created is present on there. You can just come to my repository, okay, and look around for the example. So there is Fruit Ninja example. I'm working on this Boyd flocking Boyd example. This is a the flock, the bird flock and fish flock. It's an entire physics engine which is going to render how flock of birds flow or a flock of fish flow into the water. It's still in production. You can't exactly see what the code I'm coding, but there are other example like this space, for example, is there. This rain example is there. The star example is there. So every example of Compose I've built up till now is there on my GitHub repository. So I can share that link. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in and bearing with me. Okay. Thank you, Daniel, for hosting it. Bye bye. Take care.